First off, let's talk about the footwear. I've heard a lot of drummers say, oh, I never wear shoes, or I never wear socks, or I always wear shoes, or something like that. People have their own personal preferences of what they want to do when they're on the drums. And I always get the question, how does that relate to the slide technique? And for the most part, it doesn't. I mean, a lot of people have their personal preferences for a reason, and they can actually use this technique with shoes, with socks, or barefoot. I play with shoes, and originally I started playing with socks. I found it was a lot easier, I thought, to have socks and no shoes, because when you have shoes, you have a bit of tension and friction with the sole of your shoe, the rubber part, hitting the pedal. Now, I thought this for quite a while, and when I would go and play shows at bars or shows at places that were unreputable, where this floor is really sticky, I hated taking off my shoes to play. So I started working with shoes, and I tried to think, is it the same? Can I still get that same speed and that same slide with shoes? Didn't take me too long before I realized that it's just the technique and it's just the motion. It doesn't have anything to do with the footwear you're using. So I recommend practicing with shoes, because you never know when you're going to get into a situation where you don't want to take your shoes off, or maybe you're playing at an outdoor gig. But it's just a lot handier to actually have shoes on when you're playing. So practice with shoes. But I mean, like I say, if you find it easier to play with socks, by all means. Now, when it comes to foot size, I've also heard a lot of arguments with drummers saying my feet are way too big to play the slide technique, or my feet are way too small maybe. Foot size isn't an issue at all. I have size 12, and as you can see on the foot cam, my shoes are quite big. I'm wearing DC skater shoes. They're one of the widest shoes that I've ever worn myself. But I mean, they're quite a big shoe, and as you can see, it covers most of the pedal. If I actually put my whole foot on there, you can't see any of the pedal, and it actually extends over, and if you can see there to the back too, it extends over top of the pedal itself. But that's not an issue at all. I mean, I've played on any kind of pedal with these shoes. I've seen drummers, I mean, Jared, I think he's a size 13. He's got a really big shoe as well. Size of your foot does not matter, so don't take that into account. Don't think, oh, my feet are way too big for this, or my shoes just don't fit on the pedal right, because that's not a problem at all. Now, another thing is, if you're playing with barefoot, I've heard a lot of drummers say, I only like to play with barefoot too. The only issue that I'm going to get to with barefoot is, once you start playing for quite a while, your feet will start to sweat because you're working out. And what will happen is sometimes it'll get a little bit too sticky, and it'll start to create friction on the pedal. Now, the slide technique is all about a constant motion, and it's about hitting the pedal twice with the ball of your foot. So if you're having trouble and it's starting to stick, you might find that becoming an issue in the road or in the future when you're playing long gigs, or playing at a hot setting where you have lots of lights on you, or it's summertime and you just start sweating up a storm. So that is one issue that I have found playing barefoot. So if there is one that I should not recommend, it is playing with bare feet. Try either socks or shoes. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is the actual pedal itself, because there are a few things you should look for when you're actually buying your pedal, or when you're thinking about using this technique. As you can see, I am using the Yamaha Flying Dragons. And if you look, you can see it's got a little bit of a V kind of design on there. Now, that is actually embroidered into the actual pedal, meaning it's chiseled out, so it's not just a design, it's actually part of the actual pedal itself. I have seen pedals like, I think Gibraltar makes one that has like an actual really weird design on there. And the one thing that I do find is, when you're playing the slide technique, especially with socks or barefoot, certain designs could actually hinder the use of it. Because with the slide technique, you're actually moving your foot right up the pedal. And if there's a lot of jagged edges, you could either hurt yourself by cutting your foot, or you could actually, it could be really uncomfortable. So just keep that in mind when you're picking out your pedal. Or if you have a pedal like that already has some rigid edges, you might want to try playing with just shoes. Now, when it comes to pedal settings, when it comes to setting up the spring tension, the beater height, the angle of the footboard, basically all the settings should be similar to what we talked about in the original lesson on how to set up your double bass pedals. Making sure that you have a comfortable spring tension, making sure that the pedal just feels right, that's essential. There's no real special techniques or tips or tricks on setting up the pedal that are really going to help you out with the slide technique. Just make sure that your pedals are set up right. And if you haven't already, you have to check out the pedal settings video that we've done earlier on. It's going to really open your eyes and show you exactly how to set up your pedals. Once you do that, come back here, and we're ready to start the slide technique.